Birthdays, nigga.
The sound of gunshots echoed through the quiet parking lot of Pine Forest Health and Rehabilitation just after 10:30 on that Friday night in Jackson. What should have been the end of another ordinary shift became the scene of unthinkable violence that would leave two families shattered forever. A witness later described hearing raised voices, then the unmistakable crack of gunfire that pierced the December air. The peaceful nursing home, where elderly residents slept soundly in their beds, became the backdrop for a tragedy that no one saw coming. 27-year-old Destiny Carey Stewart lay motionless on the cold asphalt, a single gunshot wound to her head ending a life full of promise and compassion. Just feet away, 29-year-old Samuel Coleman sat slumped in his car, the weapon that destroyed two lives still warm in his hand. This is the story of how love turned deadly, and how one woman's final shift at work became her last moments on earth. Destiny Carey Stewart was the kind of person who made everyone around her feel a little bit brighter. At 27 years old, she had found her calling as a certified nursing assistant at Pine Forest Health and Rehabilitation, where she cared for some of Jackson's most vulnerable residents with genuine warmth and dedication. Her colleagues remember Destiny as someone who never complained about the long hours or difficult patients. She would stay late to comfort a frightened resident or help a co-worker who was struggling with their workload. The elderly patients adored her gentle touch and infectious smile that could light up even the darkest hospital room. Destiny had dreams beyond the nursing home walls. She talked about advancing her career in healthcare, maybe becoming a registered nurse someday. She wanted to make a difference in people's lives, to be remembered as someone who truly cared. Her family describes her as fiercely loyal, always putting others before herself. She was building a life in Jackson, creating connections with her patients and co-workers who had become like family. Destiny believed in second chances and saw the good in everyone she met. That compassionate heart, the very thing that made her such an exceptional caregiver, may have also made her vulnerable to the man who would ultimately take her life. Friday nights at Pine Forest Health and Rehabilitation followed the same predictable pattern. Destiny would clock in for her evening shift, make her rounds checking on patients, and ensure everyone was comfortable for the night. She had been working these late shifts for months, and the routine had become second nature to her. That particular Friday in December felt no different from any other. Destiny went about her duties with her usual care and attention, chatting with residents, updating charts, and coordinating with the night staff. Her co-workers noticed nothing unusual about her demeanor or behavior throughout the evening. As her shift wound down around 10:30 that night, Destiny gathered her belongings and said goodbye to her colleagues. She walked through the familiar hallways one last time, pushed open the front doors, and stepped into the parking lot where her car waited. It was a walk she had made countless times before, across the same asphalt, under the same streetlights. But this time, Samuel Coleman was waiting in the shadows, and Destiny's routine journey home would never be completed. Before we continue with this heartbreaking story, I need you to do something for me. If you're watching this video right now, it means you care about real stories that matter, stories that could help protect someone you love. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because the details I'm about to share could save a life. This isn't just entertainment, it's education that every single person needs to hear. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Are you someone who works late shifts? Do you know someone who does? Because what happened to Destiny could happen to anyone, anywhere. And the warning signs we missed might be happening in your community right now. December 15th, 2023 started like any other Friday for Destiny Stewart. She arrived at Pine Forest Health and Rehabilitation for her evening shift, greeting her coworkers with her characteristic warm smile. Her colleagues later recalled that she seemed in good spirits, chatting about weekend plans and laughing at the usual workplace jokes. Throughout her shift, Destiny moved through her responsibilities with practiced efficiency. She helped residents with their evening medications, assisted with dinner service, and made sure everyone was settled comfortably for the night. Several co-workers mentioned that she stayed a few extra minutes with Mrs. Johnson, an elderly patient who had been feeling anxious lately. Around 9:30 that evening, Destiny completed her final rounds and began preparing her shift notes for the incoming night staff. She organized her paperwork meticulously, as she always did, ensuring a smooth transition for her replacement. Her supervisor later said Destiny seemed relaxed and was looking forward to her days off. As 10:30 approached, Destiny gathered her purse and jacket from her locker. She said her usual goodbyes to the night shift workers, reminding them about a few patients who might need extra attention. Nobody suspected that these casual farewells would be the last words they would ever hear from their beloved colleague. The parking lot of Pine Forest Health and Rehabilitation was dimly lit by a few scattered streetlights when Destiny stepped outside at 10:32 that Friday night. Security cameras would later show her walking normally toward her vehicle, unaware that Samuel Coleman had been waiting in his car for an unknown amount of time. Witnesses from nearby apartments reported hearing raised voices around 10:35. One resident described the sound as an argument between a man and woman, though the exact words were impossible to make out from that distance. The voices grew progressively louder and more agitated as the confrontation escalated. According to police reconstruction of the scene, Coleman approached Destiny as she reached her car. What started as a conversation quickly turned heated when Destiny apparently tried to end the interaction and leave. Coleman became increasingly aggressive, blocking her path and refusing to let her get into her vehicle. A neighbor who lived across the street later told investigators that she heard a woman's voice saying, "Leave me alone," and "I need to go home" multiple times. The argument continued for several minutes, with Coleman's voice becoming more demanding and threatening as Destiny tried to de-escalate the situation. The witness accounts paint a picture of a woman desperately trying to escape a dangerous situation, while a man who claimed to love her refused to accept her boundaries. What happened next would transform a workplace parking lot into a crime scene that would haunt the Jackson community forever. At approximately 10:38 that Friday night, the argument reached its deadly conclusion. According to police reports, Samuel Coleman pulled out a handgun during the heated exchange with Destiny. Witnesses heard her scream just before the first gunshot rang out across the parking lot. Coleman fired a single shot that struck Destiny in the head, causing her to collapse instantly onto the asphalt.
Jackson nursing home employee is killed when police say her boyfriend went to her job and confronted her. No one inside that facility was harmed. 3 on your side's Rosalind Anderson has the latest from Jackson Police. Rosalind?
2 families are now left devastated after Jackson Police responded to gunfire at the Forest Avenue nursing home. According to Jackson Police, the murder-suicide occurred around midnight Friday at Pine Forest Health and Rehabilitation. 20-year-old Destiny Deja Stewart was shot once in the head in the parking lot of the nursing home. Police say 29-year-old Samuel Coleman argued with Stewart before opening fire. Investigators say Coleman then went to his car and shot himself. Stewart was a certified nursing assistant at the facility. Both were transported to a local hospital where they were taken off life support Saturday.
Whatever the situation was, if she wanted to move on with her life or she wanted to end the relationship with him, that should have been the end of it. It should not have been a situation where you got to take her life and then take your life, because now both families are destroyed forever here in the city of Jackson.
Our repeated calls to Pine Forest administration for comment have not been returned. JPD offers conflict resolution training each Monday at 6 p.m.
The young woman who had spent her evening caring for others lay motionless as her attacker stood over her for several moments. Neighbors reported an awful silence that followed the gunshot, broken only by the sound of car doors. Coleman then walked calmly to his own vehicle, got inside, and turned the weapon on himself. The second gunshot echoed through the night, just minutes after the first. By the time the first neighbor reached the parking lot, both Destiny and Coleman were unconscious and bleeding heavily. The entire violent encounter lasted less than 10 minutes, but it destroyed 2 families and left an entire community searching for answers about how love could turn so deadly. The first 911 call came in at 10:41, just 3 minutes after the gunshots. Multiple neighbors had called simultaneously, reporting shots fired and 2 people down in the Pine Forest parking lot. Jackson police and paramedics arrived within 6 minutes to find both victims critically wounded but still clinging to life. Emergency medical technicians immediately began life-saving measures on both Destiny and Coleman. Despite the severity of their injuries, both victims had weak pulses and were rushed to the local hospital in critical condition. The parking lot was quickly secured as a crime scene, with yellow tape blocking off the area where 2 lives hung in the balance. Samuel Coleman was 29 years old when he committed this horrific act of violence, but understanding who he was requires looking beyond that tragic Friday night. Born and raised in Jackson, Coleman had lived in the area his entire life and was known to many in the community as a quiet, seemingly ordinary man. Friends and acquaintances described Coleman as someone who kept to himself most of the time. He worked various jobs over the years, though he struggled to maintain steady employment for extended periods. Those who knew him casually never suspected the capacity for violence that would eventually surface. Coleman and Destiny had been in an on and off relationship for several months before the murder-suicide. According to family members, the relationship had been troubled from early on, with frequent breakups and reconciliations that created an unstable dynamic between the couple. What made Coleman's actions even more shocking to those who knew him was his outward appearance of normalcy. He didn't fit the stereotype of a violent criminal that many people expect. This case serves as a stark reminder that domestic violence perpetrators often hide behind masks of respectability, making their true nature difficult to detect until it's too late for their victims. Destiny and Samuel first met through mutual friends in Jackson's close-knit community sometime in early 2023. Initial accounts from friends suggest that Coleman was charming and attentive during the early stages of their relationship, showering Destiny with attention and affection that seemed genuine at first. However, what appeared to be romantic devotion quickly transformed into something much more controlling. Coleman began monitoring Destiny's activities, questioning her about her whereabouts, and expressing jealousy over her friendships and work relationships. He would frequently show up at Pine Forest unannounced, claiming he wanted to surprise her or bring her lunch. Destiny's friends noticed changes in her behavior as the relationship progressed. She became more withdrawn and seemed anxious when discussing Coleman. Several co-workers mentioned that she would check her phone constantly during shifts, as if worried about missing his calls or messages. The relationship followed a destructive pattern of intense arguments, followed by passionate reconciliations. Coleman would become angry and possessive, leading to breakups that never seemed to stick. He would apologize profusely, promise to change, and convince Destiny to give him another chance. This cycle repeated multiple times throughout their relationship, with each reconciliation becoming shorter and the conflicts becoming more intense and frequent. The warning signs of Coleman's dangerous behavior were present long before that fatal Friday night. But like many domestic violence situations, they escalated gradually and were often dismissed or minimized by those around the couple. Co-workers at Pine Forest reported that Coleman would sometimes wait in the parking lot for hours, watching for Destiny to finish her shift. When confronted about this behavior, he would claim he was just being protective or romantic. Several staff members felt uncomfortable with his frequent unannounced visits to the facility. Friends of Destiny mentioned that she had confided about Coleman's jealousy and controlling behavior on multiple occasions. He would become angry when she spent time with friends or worked overtime shifts. Destiny had expressed concerns about his temper, but she also made excuses for his behavior, believing she could help him change. The most troubling red flag was Coleman's inability to accept when Destiny tried to end their relationship. Each time she attempted to break up with him, he would escalate his efforts to win her back, refusing to respect her boundaries or decisions about their future together. I want you to pause right here and think about someone you know. Maybe it's a friend, a co-worker, or a family member who's in a relationship that doesn't feel quite right. Are they making excuses for their partner's behavior? Have they become more isolated or anxious lately? The signs we just discussed about Coleman and Destiny's relationship aren't unique to their story. They happen every single day in communities, just like yours. If this sounds familiar, please share this video with someone who needs to see it. Comment below if you've ever witnessed these warning signs in someone's relationship. Your story could help save a life. Both Destiny Stewart and Samuel Coleman arrived at the local hospital in critical condition just after 11 o'clock that Friday night. Emergency room doctors immediately began working to save their lives. Despite the severity of their gunshot wounds to the head, the medical team fought against time, knowing that every second counted in cases involving such traumatic brain injuries. Destiny's family received the devastating phone call around midnight, shattering what should have been a peaceful Friday evening at home. Her parents, siblings, and close friends rushed to the hospital, their hearts filled with hope and terror in equal measure. They gathered in the waiting room, clinging to each other and praying for a miracle. Coleman's family faced the same agonizing reality on the other side of the hospital. Despite the horrific nature of his actions, they too were grieving parents who had received an unthinkable phone call about their son. The hospital became a place where two families experienced the same crushing fear while grappling with completely different emotions about the man who had caused this tragedy. Medical staff worked tirelessly throughout the night, monitoring both patients' vital signs and brain activity. The doctors were honest with both families about the grim prognosis, but they continued their efforts to stabilize the patients and assess the full extent of their injuries. Saturday morning brought no relief for either family as both Destiny and Coleman remained unconscious and on life support. The hospital waiting rooms became spaces of quiet desperation, filled with whispered prayers and the constant beeping of medical equipment echoing from nearby rooms. Destiny's co-workers from Pine Forest began arriving throughout the day, creating an impromptu support network for her grieving family. They shared stories about her kindness and dedication, trying to keep her spirit alive while machines kept her body functioning. The nursing staff she had worked alongside now found themselves on the other side of the medical equation, helplessly watching their friend fight for her life. Community members who had heard about the tragedy began bringing food and flowers to the hospital. Local churches organized prayer circles, and social media filled with messages of support for Destiny's family. The outpouring of love demonstrated just how many lives she had touched during her 27 years. Meanwhile, Coleman's family struggled with their own grief, complicated by the knowledge that their loved one was responsible for this senseless violence. By Saturday evening, medical tests confirmed what the families had feared most. Both Destiny and Coleman showed no brain activity, and doctors explained that their injuries were incompatible with life. The machines were keeping their bodies alive, but their minds were already gone. After consulting with medical professionals and spending agonizing hours in prayer and discussion, both families made the heartbreaking decision to remove life support. Destiny's family gathered around her bedside to say their final goodbyes, holding her hands and telling her how much she was loved. The life support machines were turned off Saturday night, and both victims passed away peacefully surrounded by their families. The news of Destiny's death sent shockwaves through the Pine Forest Health and Rehabilitation Facility and the surrounding Jackson community. Her co-workers struggled to process the loss of someone who had been laughing and working alongside them just hours before the tragedy occurred. The nursing home brought in grief counselors to help staff cope with the trauma of losing their colleague in such a violent manner. Many employees found it difficult to return to work, especially those who had to walk through the same parking lot where Destiny had been murdered. Neighbors who had witnessed the shooting or heard the gunshots also sought counseling, as the violence had shattered their sense of safety in their own community. Destiny Stewart's murder represents a devastating statistic that most people never think about until it touches their own community. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, workplace violence affects nearly 2 million American workers each year, with women being disproportionately targeted by current or former intimate partners at their place of employment. Domestic violence doesn't stay confined to the home. In fact, 74% of employed domestic violence victims are harassed by their abusers while at work. This harassment often escalates to physical violence, with workplaces becoming the final confrontation point in abusive relationships. The most dangerous time for a domestic violence victim is when they attempt to leave their abuser. Studies show that the risk of homicide increases by 750% during the separation period. Samuel Coleman's inability to accept Destiny's decision to end their relationship fits this deadly pattern perfectly. Every day in America, 3 women are murdered by their intimate partners. Behind each of these statistics is a real person like Destiny, someone with dreams, goals, and people who love them. These aren't just numbers. They're preventable tragedies that destroy entire families and communities. Looking back at Destiny and Coleman's relationship, the warning signs were present but often dismissed as normal relationship challenges. Friends and family might have noticed several red flags that, when viewed together, painted a clear picture of escalating danger. Coleman's excessive jealousy was one of the most obvious warning signs. His frequent questioning about Destiny's whereabouts, his unannounced visits to her workplace, and his anger when she spent time with friends all indicated possessive and controlling behavior. Many people dismiss jealousy as romantic passion, but extreme jealousy is actually a predictor of future violence. The pattern of breakups and reconciliations should have been another major concern. Healthy relationships don't involve constant cycles of conflict and make-up sessions. Coleman's inability to respect Destiny's decisions to end the relationship demonstrated his refusal to accept her autonomy and boundaries. Destiny's behavioral changes were also significant indicators. Her increased anxiety, withdrawal from friends, and constant phone checking suggested she was walking on eggshells around Coleman. When someone's personality changes dramatically in a relationship, it often means they're being controlled or intimidated. The most dangerous sign was Coleman's escalating presence at Destiny's workplace. When abusers begin stalking their victims at work, it often indicates they're preparing for a final confrontation that could turn deadly. Understanding why Destiny stayed in a dangerous relationship requires examining the complex psychology of domestic violence. Abusive relationships don't start with violence. They begin with what feels like intense love and attention. Coleman likely showered Destiny with affection early on, making her feel special and desired. The transition from romance to control happens gradually. Abusers slowly isolate their victims from support systems, making them financially or emotionally dependent. They alternate between punishment and reward, creating a psychological bond that becomes difficult to break. Victims often believe they can fix their partner or that the abuse is somehow their fault. Fear plays a major role in keeping victims trapped. Coleman had already demonstrated his willingness to show up at Destiny's workplace uninvited and his inability to accept her boundaries. She may have stayed because she was afraid of what he might do if she left permanently. This fear was tragically justified, as leaving proved to be the most dangerous decision she could make. Society often asks why victims don't just leave, but the real question should be why abusers don't stop their violent behavior. The responsibility for domestic violence lies entirely with the perpetrator, not the victim who is trying to survive an impossible situation. Jackson Police Chief Joseph Wade captured the senseless nature of this tragedy in his statement to the media. Whatever the situation was, if she wanted to move on with life or she wanted to end the relationship with him, that should have been the end of it. Chief Wade said, "It should not have been a situation where you've got to take a life and then take your life, because now both families are destroyed forever here in the city of Jackson." His words highlight the fundamental issue at the heart of domestic violence, the refusal to respect another person's right to make their own choices about their life and relationships. The Jackson Police Department's investigation into the murder-suicide was straightforward but thorough. Detectives classified the case as a domestic violence incident that escalated to homicide-suicide, with Samuel Coleman identified as the sole perpetrator. The investigation confirmed that Coleman had waited for Destiny in the Pine Forest parking lot and confronted her as she left work. Physical evidence at the scene, witness testimonies, and security camera footage all supported the same conclusion. This was a premeditated act of violence by a man who refused to accept the end of his relationship. The weapon used in both shootings was legally purchased by Coleman several months earlier, raising questions about background check systems and access to firearms during domestic disputes. Police found no evidence that Destiny had provoked the attack or acted in any way that justified Coleman's violent response. The investigation reinforced what domestic violence experts already know. The most dangerous time for victims is when they try to leave their abusers. Coleman's actions fit the classic pattern of intimate partner violence that ends in murder-suicide when the abuser loses control. Destiny's family struggled to find words adequate to express their grief and loss. In a statement released through their attorney, they described Destiny as a loving daughter, sister, and friend who dedicated her life to caring for others. They emphasized that she died doing what she loved most, helping vulnerable people who depended on her compassion and skill. Her parents spoke about the dreams that would never be fulfilled, the grandchildren they would never meet, and the hole in their family that could never be filled. They expressed frustration that the warning signs of Coleman's dangerous behavior had not been taken more seriously by those around the couple. The family also made a powerful plea for other domestic violence victims to seek help before it was too late. They established a memorial fund in Destiny's name to support domestic violence prevention programs and workplace safety initiatives. Through their unimaginable pain, they found purpose in trying to prevent other families from experiencing the same devastating loss they now faced every day. Pine Forest Health and Rehabilitation faced the difficult task of helping their staff process the traumatic loss of their colleague. The facility brought in professional grief counselors and trauma specialists to support employees who were struggling with the violent death of someone they worked alongside every day. Many staff members found it challenging to return to work, particularly those who had to walk through the parking lot where Destiny was murdered. The facility implemented additional security measures and lighting improvements to help employees feel safer during shift changes. Management also reviewed their policies regarding workplace harassment and unwanted visitors, recognizing that domestic violence often follows victims to their place of employment. In response to this tragedy, the Jackson Police Department expanded their community outreach efforts to address domestic violence prevention. Chief Wade announced that JPD offers conflict resolution training every Monday at 6 o'clock in the evening at the Police Training Academy on 3000 St. Charles Street. These sessions provide community members with tools to recognize warning signs of domestic violence and learn how to safely intervene or seek help. The department also partnered with local domestic violence organizations to ensure victims have access to emergency shelters, legal assistance, and counseling services. The goal is to create a community where tragedies like Destiny's murder can be prevented through education, early intervention, and comprehensive support systems. Destiny Stewart's tragic death teaches us crucial lessons about workplace safety and personal protection that could save lives. Employers must implement comprehensive safety protocols that address domestic violence spillover into the workplace. This includes training staff to recognize warning signs, establishing secure parking areas with adequate lighting, and creating policies for handling unwanted visitors or harassment. For individuals, personal safety strategies include varying your routine when possible, especially during shift changes. If you're experiencing relationship problems or feel unsafe, inform trusted coworkers and supervisors about potential threats. Consider using different entrances and exits, and never walk to your car alone if you feel threatened. Technology can also provide protection through safety apps that alert emergency contacts or law enforcement with your location. Many workplaces now offer escort services for employees leaving during late hours. The key is recognizing that domestic violence doesn't respect boundaries between home and work, and safety planning must account for all areas of your life where an abuser might confront you. Learning to identify dangerous relationship patterns can help you protect yourself or someone you care about. Excessive jealousy, controlling behavior, isolation from friends and family, and refusal to accept breakups are all serious warning signs that require immediate attention. If you recognize these signs in your own relationship, reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. If you see these patterns in someone else's relationship, offer support without judgment and help them connect with professional resources. Remember that leaving an abusive relationship is the most dangerous time, so safety planning with professionals is essential. Destiny Stewart was more than a victim of domestic violence. She was a dedicated healthcare worker who touched countless lives through her compassion and care. Her legacy should be one of prevention, education, and protection for others who might face similar dangers. If this story has impacted you, please subscribe to this channel and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your engagement helps these important stories reach people who might need this information to save their own lives or help someone they love. Let's honor Destiny's memory by working together to prevent future tragedies like this one.